What's going on, guys? I'm Tyler, and I'm very late to the party on this one, but nonetheless, I'm here to let you know that Midsommar is no perfect movie. And that's also how you say it, according to the director. So, Midsommar focuses on a couple played by Florence Pugh and Jack Reynor who are invited by a Swedish friend to go to his home commune for a midsummer celebration that happens once every 90 years. And of course, they find out the hard way that they picked the wrong one in 90 to come because this commune turns out to be more of a cult and has some more sinister plans involved for them. I didn't actually make a review of Hereditary because the theater going experience for that was the worst theater experience I ever had in my life. It's always A24 horror movies where the audiences around me just act like complete fucking morons. They have absolutely no idea what kind of horror movies they walk into. They expect stuff like The Conjuring, where it really is a lot of loud and bombastic jump scares. And whenever they are scared by A24 horror movies, they are so shocked and disturbed, which, like, it's great that they can get into those movies nonetheless, but it's so new to them that when they do talk out loud and scream and everything, it becomes a lot more annoying as a result. And I had all this negative energy towards the movie for that reason, and I didn't think it was really fair to talk about it. So I waited a while, I watched it again, and I gotta be honest, I still wasn't really that big a fan of the movie. I acknowledge that Toni Collette gave an over the top but still really effective performance that delivered the most tension through the movie, and I respect Ari Aster's attempt to use psychological drama as opposed to the loud, cheap jump scares that you would expect from modern horror movies nowadays. But for me, what really weighed it down was just the pacing of the movie. It felt way too damn slow. And I felt like the focus on the drama, the substance as the scares, as opposed to the style, was a big mistake for me. Because the things that really scare me are when the substance and the style of a horror movie go equally hand in hand. And that's actually one of the reasons that I think Midsommar was a huge improvement for me personally. The cinematography, especially, gives the movie this ominous, bright, and beautiful look, which, of course, is what makes it very misleading to these characters. There are a lot of these massive wide shots where the commune looks so beautiful, surrounded by nature, filled with people who are so passionate about their culture, about their spiritual beliefs, but all this wide open space in these wide shots are also what really add to the tension because with all this wide open space, whenever something really fucked up happens, you can tell without even noticing that these characters have nowhere else to run and they're completely defenseless. There are some aerial shots too that make it feel like you're being spied on. We aren't entirely sure at first whether or not these characters are being followed by the commune elders, whether or not these gods and demons that they believe in exist, and if so, are they the ones who are being voyeuristic towards these main characters? There's a lot of mystery and intrigue to these shots. But easily the most unsettling technique that they use is the editing. There are a few moments where the characters are under the influence. I don't want to give away explicitly what happens, but the editing knows just how long to linger on these incredibly creative but still surreal and kooky visuals that feel so disorienting. I don't get sick during movies, but if you do it well, I do get my head does feel like it's swimming based on some of the more hallucinatory images that you see throughout the movie, especially with our main character Danny. Sometimes there are these fade-ins where there are five or six of her in the exact same shot, and it feels like you're in a really weird fever dream. And I gotta say, even though this isn't my favorite performance of Florence Pugh's, it's either Fighting with My Family or Little Women. I think it might be Little Women just by this much, but this is easily her best performance. Just like Toni Collette in Hereditary, Florence Pugh in this movie is another woman who's experiencing a constant and never ending amount of stress in her daily life, and her expressions really sell just how much turmoil she's in. And of course, she obviously wants to confront her pain. She's reaching out to her boyfriend, to many other friends as often as possible whenever she feels like she needs someone to talk to. But because she can kind of tell through his voice that her her daily struggles are kind of alienating her boyfriend and that he's tired of the emotional baggage, but he's too big of a coward to dump her because he knows for a fact that it'll definitely set off something extreme for her, she tends to apologize for it and for many other things that she has absolutely no reason to. In a really fucked up way, it isn't until she goes to this commune where people are actually reaching out for her. These commune, all of these citizens are actually asking her how she feels. They actually ask her to participate. There is a terrific tribal dance where it basically visualizes her as a character. She is in a lot of pain, but she plows through it because she doesn't know what else to do. And in the end, she's rewarded for it through unconditional love by this commune. And what's even more disturbing is that when they do confront her about how emotionally repressed she is, about how she's supporting this boyfriend who really doesn't deserve it, even though it's clear they're trying to take advantage of her, everything they are saying is absolutely true. And that's actually the main thing that motivates the scares and the themes in this movie. What is the truth? Because Jack Reynor, as this boyfriend, always has this phony voice, this phony line delivery of a character who's always hiding something, especially from Danny. He's hiding how he really feels about her. He's hiding the fact that he wasn't even going to take her on this trip to Sweden in the first place. Not to protect her, obviously, but to forget about her. She really doesn't mean anything to him anymore, and the only reason he continues on with this relationship is because he's afraid of looking like a complete douchebag, because, well, he totally is. Because outside of his relationship problems, he and this one classmate are fighting over whether or not they can do research for their anthropology degree on this commune. They're willing to break the commune's traditions, their boundaries, even their own partnership for their own glory. And Will Poulter, well, he has his priorities straight. So, as a result, the thing that this cult has in mind for the men in this movie is kind of a way of disciplining them for their falsehoods. And as for the cult themselves, Ari Aster knows for a fact that we've seen cults be villains in horror movies all the time, and for purely selfish reasons. In this movie, this cult doesn't really operate out of greed, but to survive, because it's the traditions that they've all been raised on. Every cult member speaks with so much passion and intensity when they're talking about the things that they love about their community. So, even though you obviously don't agree with them, you obviously understand that in their minds, they think they're doing the right thing. The only reason they're hiding anything from these new visitors is because they know for a fact that their customs are foreign to just about everyone else. But kind of like Dragged Across Concrete, even though there are a lot of thought-provoking themes, there are a lot of clever uses of foreshadowing, especially upon rewatch. There are all these tribal drawings that kind of illustrate what's about to happen in future scenes, and on first viewing, all you can think about is just how fucking creepy it is, and then upon second viewing, it's just like, wait a minute, that's this character, that's this character, that hasn't happened yet, oh my god, that is really fucked up. Wow. Stuff like that's really cool, and of course, the actors all give really good performances. Will Poulter was okay as the comic relief, but he never really ruins any of the scenes with his jokes. But again, like Dragged Across Concrete, all these good things are occasionally outweighed by the fact that the runtime is really, really hard to make it sit through the entire movie. Once they get to the commune, you don't really mind as much because there's always something strange happening, especially the cliff scene. If you've seen the movie, you know exactly what I'm talking about, and you know that the more deliberate pacing is what makes it easily the scariest bit in the entire movie. But the first half hour where they're setting up these characters, it takes a really long time to get going, and there are way too many pauses of characters having awkward silences whenever they don't know what to say next. It felt really repetitive. It felt really heavy-handed in what Aster was trying to communicate about the scene and the characters. You felt like you already knew that about them 2 or 3 scenes before. I felt like you could have spent more time on Danny's backstory, because I gotta be honest, I've seen this movie 3 times, and as tragic as her backstory is, I never really felt bad about it. And I think they make a simplistic reason for why this tragic event involving her sister happened. Her sister has bipolar disorder, and Danny has some sort of mental disorder of her own that's never really addressed, that's never really even named, and that's about it. And that's another thing about Aster that I can't really stand other than his pacing. And I'm not going to say that he is wrong about it or that he doesn't have any right to talk about it, because there's no easy answer to what I'm about to say next. And chances are it's probably why he does it the way he does in the first place. But I've never really liked the way that Ari Aster has portrayed mental illness in movies. I give Hereditary credit that supernatural events are a metaphor for psychological horror, so I still don't think Hereditary actually is a psychological horror, but I understand the metaphor, and I respect it more than I like it. But in this movie, there are so many hints at something that never really come into fruition. You see Danny take psychiatric medication once, and then for the rest of the movie, it's never referenced, it's never mentioned. It seems like it was just a one-off thing. They mentioned that she has a psychiatrist, but she never talks about this shrink. We never see the shrink. We never see her talk about what she learned from her mental health professionals. She talks to her best friend, who is in one scene on the phone only, like it is her therapist, as opposed to calling her therapist whenever something fucked up happens. And it's just like, wow, great fucking logic there. And if you're going to tell me that there are patients like that who exist, who have shrinks, but don't really reveal that much to them out of fear, I understand that, and I understand that might be part of the point, but it's kind of like the awkward pauses in the movie. Just because it's realistic doesn't always mean it makes sense in a movie. It doesn't always mean that it makes sense. It doesn't always mean that it's entertaining to watch, because at the end of the day, I do go see horror movies to be entertained, and you can be entertained by something bleak and dreary based on just how much effort was put into it, just how much style it has. And this movie does have that style, and that's more than enough for me personally. But I know that there are no easy answers to where mental health begins to deteriorate, but there are simple answers to how it becomes exacerbated. And because it's a family tragedy, and because we really don't know anything about Danny's family in the first place, it just feels like it's, hey, we mentioned this out, we threw this out the window, that means it's about mental health, right? No, not really. But that being said, it is more of a personal pet peeve, and considering I discovered things for the first time on my third viewing of this movie, chances are I could go back and rewatch it, look closer to the things that I didn't enjoy about it, and maybe they might not even be problems in the future. We'll see how it goes. But in the long run, Midsommar is more of a movie to admire more than it is to be entertained by. But again, you can be entertained by a bleak horror movie based on the style and execution. And Ari Aster did a fantastic job in terms of writing, in terms of directing. The cinematography and editing are really unnerving, and Florence Pugh really gives the performance of her career so far. Not my favorite, but definitely the best. So for all those reasons, I'm going to give Midsommar a 4 out of 5. Guys, thanks as always for watching. If you have seen Midsommar, you more than likely have. Let me know in the comments below what you thought of it. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.